So, picture this. Sitting in a museum in Iraq is this small, unassuming clay pot. But this little pot could completely rewrite how we think about ancient technology. It's called the Baghdad Battery, and for decades, people have pointed to it as proof that ancient civilizations knew about electricity. But what if that's not the whole story? What if its real purpose was something, well, something way more mysterious, maybe even ritualistic? And right away, this simple pot throws a huge question at us. Are we looking at a 2,000-year-old power source, a piece of tech that's just way ahead of its time? Or was it something else entirely, a key maybe to unlocking the secrets of ancient sacred ceremonies? All right, so to really get into this debate, we've got to understand the object itself. Let's break down this ancient puzzle piece by piece. So, back in the 1930s, this thing was unearthed near modern-day Baghdad. It dates all the way back to the Parthian Empire, and its discovery immediately threw a wrench in our assumptions about the ancient world. Because honestly, it looks like something that just shouldn't exist from that time period. Okay, so what are we actually looking at here? It's surprisingly simple. You've got this little terracotta jar, maybe 5 inches tall. Inside that, there's a cylinder made of a rolled-up copper sheet. And then, right in the middle, an iron rod is suspended, and the whole thing is sealed up with a plug of bitumen, which is like asphalt. Now, each part on its own is pretty basic, right? But put them all together and, well, it looks almost exactly like a simple battery. And yeah, that's exactly where most people's minds go. It leads us straight to the most popular, long-standing theory that this thing was, quite simply, a battery. The science behind it is actually pretty straightforward. You just pour in something acidic, think wine, vinegar, or even grape juice, all things they had plenty of back then. That liquid would kick off a chemical reaction between the two different metals, the copper and the iron, and that reaction generates a small, steady electrical voltage. And get this, people have made replicas, and it totally works. You get about half a volt of electricity out of it. Okay, so let's say it was a battery. What in the world would you do with half a volt of electricity 2,000 years ago? Well, as you can see, the leading idea has always been electroplating, using that small current to put a thin layer of gold or silver on jewelry. A few other ideas have been thrown around, like a primitive form of electrotherapy for pain, or maybe even a bit of religious trickery to create a tingling sensation and wow the followers. But here's the thing. There's a huge catch. The evidence for any of this stuff is, well, it's basically non-existent. No electroplated artifacts from that period have ever been found. So that makes you wonder, right? What if this wasn't about a simple practical task at all? What if this little bit of power was for something way, way bigger, something more symbolic? And that's where this really cool, kind of radical new idea comes into play. It suggests we stop looking at the battery as a standalone gadget. What if it was just one piece of a much larger, much more complex system? Something alchemical. I love this quote because it just flips the whole idea on its head. It asks us to stop seeing the battery as just an object and instead start reimagining the temple as a biochemical refinery. So, what does that even mean, a biochemical refinery and an ancient temple? Well, the theory goes that the temple wasn't just a place to pray. It was more like a functioning system. It was designed so priests could carry out these complex rituals that involved both chemical and electrical processes. The battery wasn't some portable tool. It was a built-in component of a much larger, sacred machine. So, if the temple is a giant machine, what was it making? Well, this new theory points to one specific, really fascinating purpose: the ritualistic gilding of sacred idols. See, in this model, the electricity wasn't the main event. It was just an ingredient, an alchemical catalyst. It was the little spark needed to kickstart a sacred chemical transformation, turning ordinary objects into things that were filled with divine power. This really lays out the two different ways of looking at it, side by side. On the left, you have the conventional view. It's a practical tool, a simple power source to do a job. But the new alchemical theory on the right completely reframes it. It's not a tool, it's an instrument, essential to a sacred process inside a whole ritual system. The goal wasn't just to make something look shiny, it was to literally infuse it with a divine essence. Okay, so let's try to picture what this new theory would have actually looked like in practice. This is where we move from a dusty old pot to a living, breathing ceremony.
We start with what we have now, right? These quiet, static clay jars sitting on a museum shelf. They just seem inert, dead, relics from a world that's long gone.
But this new theory just breathes life back into them. It suggests we should see them as part of the vibrant, electrically charged rituals of Mesopotamian antiquity. Just imagine it. Priests are chanting, the air is thick with incense, and these batteries are all humming away, connected together, all part of this incredible, sacred machine.
So really, at its core, this is all about one unified system. You have the temple, which is the sacred space, you have the battery, which provides the catalytic energy, and you have the idol, which is the object being transformed. These aren't three separate things. They're all working together as one single piece of ritual technology.
And that just leaves us with this huge, fascinating question, doesn't it? If the Baghdad Battery wasn't a simple power source but part of a complex ritual machine, what else have we found that we've completely misunderstood? What other ancient oddities are just sitting in museums waiting for us to see them in a whole new light and finally understand what they were really for?